Welcome everybody. Hope everyone's having a great day. My name is Alex. I am the Bull Moose Progress guy. But happy to see everyone here. Pretty remarkable the amount of growth and interactions that we've been having for at least the last month. And even before that, but since last meeting. And so really, really happy about that and love to see the community engage and all the great ideas flow. So thank you guys for that. Um, from last meeting, we have, let me double check that those notes are pulled up correctly. So last meeting we worked on, we talked about trying to figure out what we needed from some volunteer stuff, really wanting to get the website off the ground, which we're still making some progress to. Talking about creating a 501c3, 4, uh, a social welfare nonprofit to help start driving through funds, so that we can help with either community organizing and whatnot, and help us kind of get to the next level. And then that was mainly it. We talked a little bit about policy, but we hadn't grown super large, so we didn't want to move too fast on that without getting more people involved and get more ideas out there. So yeah, that's basically that from last meeting. I'll say this. This will probably be the last sort of informal meeting we have. I do want to get some more official things going as we progress. Make things a little bit easier. Um, so that is meeting recording, um, actually having more of a structure of reading the minutes, uh, doing the parliamentary stuff, how generally other organizations run. Uh, that would be more closer to ours. But besides that, kind of want to talk about some big things that we want to do, especially for what are we looking at to do this month, and then what are we looking at to do in the future. Right, Penny? So one of the things I want to do in this next month is get another wave of volunteers, specifically around getting some researchers so that we can better understand problems in a more robust way. Uh, we want to focus on some content creation to help with a more expansive messaging and bringing in people from a more wider source. A social media manager or managers, I think those be really, really big to how, again, continue to market and expand where we can reach out to. It is not my strong suit, so definitely need some help there. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but I want to start looking for a candidate for treasurer. The big thing that is required for any official political party is a treasurer. You could have whatever else you want. You have to have a treasurer for federal law, and like one out of three states require official treasurers for any and every role that you apply for to run a campaign. So getting that structure built out will be mission critical for any long-term planning. Any call outs, concerns, thoughts, feelings, myths around some of that volunteer stuff?
For the volunteer stuff, how many hours a week are you anticipating somebody contributing?
I would say probably no more than 4. I get people have jobs. I probably put about 10 hours into it myself, but it really is depending. But I would say no more than 4 for most of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Do you know how many you're wanting at this point in time?
Uh, I'm trying to keep it small. I think we can probably do a bigger expansions. I'm a big believer of too many cooks in a kitchen.
Mhm.
So right now, Let me see if I can pull that up. We have about 12 or 11, so I'd probably get to around 20 to 30 total. So adding about 10 to 20 more people.
Okay, thank you.
Let me pull up that chat again.
As far as the social media is concerned, the first push, what is that? Is that going to be what are the ideas going for that? Like a reintroduction to people to like Theodore Roosevelt, what the party is about? Because like it would make more sense to be focused on something initially, especially since obviously we don't even have the financial or the volunteers for everything yet, but we can
Yeah.
get the message out or draw people in with, because like that's what got me. Theodore Roosevelt. I love the lore. I love the speeches. And I feel like it resonates with a lot of working class people these days. And if we can start just getting that out initially, even if it's just when you're commenting on something, be like, oh, I got this perfect quote from New Nationalism. Throw it in somewhere, people read it. Oh, wow, that sounds like something that I go through every day, and then they're going to start searching. Oh, he was a part of the Party. Oh, he was progressive, but like none of the negative connotations that come with the term progressive today. Because he's a fucking badass. And
Yeah.
when you read what he has to say, it sounds good. And like, if that's what got me, I imagine it would get other people like me as well. But I'm curious as to what direction you would go to start, or what somebody else would go with.
I would start with Blue Sky on Reddit. Just kind of talking about and responding to what's happening in the news. I think that there's enough news made every day to fill a novel per day, which is crazy. And I hate living in unprecedented times, but here we are. So I've probably started with Blue Sky. Then the focus would be creating more long form content, which is why I want to get some researchers and getting some content creation around specifically infographics of, hey, if we want to pull out this policy, well, what's the true impact? How do a lot of people and a lot of the issues is people will be like, this doesn't affect me. Why should I care? It doesn't affect me. Why should I care? I've never had to interact with, abortions in my life or had to go deal with someone buying out my politician. And we could generally show, like, hey, here's the really big positives in telling the story. Uh, Top Hat, it did end up happening for a mixed amount of it under, I think it was Wilson, who basically ran on the same policy as the 1912 to beat out Roosevelt and Taft because they were splitting the ticket.
All right. Well, I'm curious on for when getting the message out there for like initial messaging. It's hard to catch people's attention with a lot of the like bogged down technical, like, oh, I'm like having to come up with a story for you. Like for in my district specifically, Sam Graves is the head of the what is it, the transportation like committee. Like he's the chair on the transportation committee. But we have water systems failing in Missouri. We have infrastructure crumbling, and he has not been speaking to constituents. But I feel like in a material base, it's easier to draw more people in by yeah, doesn't it suck that you fucking hit that pothole? Sorry, I cuss a lot. But hit that pothole on the highway, your tire exploded. Oh, because of that, your job didn't give you PTO because you don't have PTO. So you had to pay money to go get your tire fixed. You had to take time off of work, which costed you money. And then it's this guy. This guy has all this access to all these funds to make sure that we could be doing good, but instead he's busy hanging out with he's hanging out with Boeing, he's hanging out with Delta. Like these are his top donors. He has 4 free airplanes. Sorry, my wife's calling me.
You're good.
But
I think it'll really depend on a few things, but I would probably focus more on the national stuff and then start working towards how do we set a good routine and a good process for more national news and then focus on some more local news that have gone up. And then how do we take that practice and replicate it to a more local level and more state level? So it will really be designing a standard of performance. And how do we do this? How do we make this replicatable so that we can expand to 50 states, 120 cities? Like how do we really set something that can be copy pastable?
My only question about that, would that not kind of be like almost a top down approach instead of building like a foundation? Because
Kind of.
what appeals to me in Missouri might not appeal to Phoenix, South Carolina, Ohio, Florida. My life's not the same as people there, and like trying to copy and paste might be a little bit more difficult of a narrative to sell
Well, so
initially.
I will say you do it based off you set a process based off what is the simplest version of that process, and then you copy paste it down and add on to that based off the new complexity that you're meeting. But how do we set a good base process, then a simpler starting point, and how do we make that easiest on us?
May I interject a question?
Yeah.
Since we're getting everything established and still looking for volunteers, would it be more prudent to just do a push for general awareness and garner some interest first? And especially since we don't have a website or anything set up to direct people, because I don't want to give off the wrong impression that we're just fluff and no substance. Because I know like people around by me will absolutely go scorched earth on me if I don't have substance behind what I'm saying.
I would say doing more digital presence until we get the website up would
Oh
be
yeah.
the focus, and then once we get some of the website and other stuff up, then we'll do more in-person stuff.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Just like in these initial like social media and content creation, wouldn't it just be kind of basically like, hey, yes, this sucks. Are you aware of us? Would you like to work with us?
Yeah.
So the short form of the car situation, because we also have to get the younger generations. So we would create like a graphic video to create that.
My idea, and then again, I am not the best at this. So I'll input. My thought is make infographics which kind of explain what's going on, and even if we're doing voiceovers, kind of talking through it. That type of long form content on those deep breakdowns make really good for short form. To expand it onto YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, etc., etc. So,
Yeah, because
uh,
I'm thinking like the younger generations, a lot of people conversations I've had with people, they don't know much about the party just because,
yeah,
education edits things and things don't learn about that. So in order to get people to be engaged and understand, because a lot of the youth, they're not voting, they're not voicing, and they're very frustrated with the current situation, and they're just
hmm
like, then why bother, and they're somewhat giving up. So how do we
Yeah,
not
it's a
allow that
good
to
point.
happen?
MAGA really flourished on short, punchy, just really quick, really easy to digest nonsense, and I think that's kind of the approach we need to go for.
I definitely agree. I think to be fair, with the MAGA and Tea Party push, that was pushed by billionaires. We have work to do to build up infrastructure to make it sustainable and repeatable and to get it to scale. Uh, so I definitely hear this feedback. We just have to start building the processes out. Kind of being from a new spot. Um, but again, a lot of ideas. The other reason why the big focus on the next volunteer push is content creation. Is how do we start building that out and getting people engaged, because that's a big next step for us. Uh, Kind of next, I want to talk about future leadership structure. So just something rough so that we have the umbrella under everything. So we can kind of dictate and have more official volunteers. And these positions will require more time if we go into it. I want to do votes on this, hopefully in May. But it would be a chair with the following reporting to it, which would be civic engagement and voter participation, content creation, social media, all that great stuff will fall underneath there. A treasurer. How do we manage our money? How do we make sure that donations are being done in a correct way? Are we being transparent? A secretary of staff to help with anything that as we expand our volunteer groups. How do we make sure that they are getting the support they need? How are we making sure that we're getting everyone in that we need? And then a policy director. How are we putting out true policy versus, hey, we believe in universal healthcare? Well, what does that actually look like? What does that practice actually look like? So those would be kind of the big 5 that we're looking for. And again, I will post this into the meeting log, but that's something that I'll look into.
How am I supposed to hear it now?
So we can do, we'll do it based off recommendations or people want to put into it. I'll define a better process for it before we go into voting for it to make sure that everyone feels like it's a fair process. But I'll probably do that in about 2 weeks. And then lastly, kind of want to talk about our policy plan for 2025 and 2026. So big thing is we are facing an incredible hurdle as a grassroots organization. Usually grassroots organizations are good for getting very specific change across the finish line, unless they have major backing. So the Tea Party had like the Koch brothers. They had a whole media empire behind them with the PragerU, all that push Daily Wire, that really helped them out. So they weren't really a true grassroots movement. They're just a movement funded by billionaires. So how we really need to focus on how do we even the playing field and how do we change the rules. So earlier this week, I kind of talked about some additional amendments, some additional changes that we need to see in America, such as getting money out of politics, ending gerrymandering, getting voter initiatives out. That's a big focus, and I think that it should be our first focus. Those things have current movements and have current backing around that we can latch onto and help push for 2 reasons. A, it needs to happen. That is definitely needs to happen, especially if we have any hope with getting out of states and localities as a party and as a political group and getting recognized. It also will help us get, so like I am part of the Texas chapter of getting money out of politics. I've been in 2 meetings so far with the Texas chapter. Been talking about some good stuff, helping organize some protest. The big thing is, hey, getting a part of these programs and saying getting around people that have similar ideas to us will help us grow. And as these movements kind of fall away after the goals have been realized, we're able to probably pull them into our organization and into our party so that we can continue to grow with more like-minded individuals. The next step, which would be something that we would run on more specifically, would be reforming local laws. So currently, right now, has anyone heard of a NB? Not in my backyard. Laws, rules, or types of people.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Those are laws
I have as well.
and yeah, those are laws and movements and reforms that we need to get past because those are focused on property value, not focused on livability. which is killing our localities, our cities, our towns, our communities more than anything. Example, we push whenever I was in Olympia, I worked with oh, I can't remember the name of it exactly. A mutual aid council for the homeless. And hey, we showed that we had 3 acres of a bunch of houses, and it was successful. It was successful for getting homeless out of their crises, out of their drug use, so that they could get the mental health. And some of them just need a place to stay while they got a job. And we asked for more money and more land, and a NB group came out and said, "Hey, we don't want homeless here in Olympia." Well, the problem is we were solving it. We were solving it through, we're putting out a sustainable solution. They just wanted to bus them to Seattle. So, big thing is we need to start focusing on that for to be that reform, helping to start changing that. Uh, times are going to get tight. These tariffs, how this country is ran, they're talking about selling Federal Reserve gold for Bitcoin, which is dumb. But it also affects our finance and how much money and how our economy goes. And focusing on livability and getting things cheaper and more affordable where they live, affordable housing, driving down home costs and home prices will be key and a very easy message to sell.
Can I bring up one point to that?
What's up?
So for the NB thing, the people talking about not wanting like homeless like housing built or whatever in their neighborhood. I don't know, like the narrative of being like, hey, you should want to help these people, you should want to do that. It's already not working for them, and you could talk to them about it in a different way, like, hey, doesn't it suck that we're not developing your community because your kids moved away and they haven't been back for a couple months? Because when you frame it in the culture war around homelessness has already been like, those lines are pretty much in the sand. And even if that's what our goal is to expand like housing, make it more affordable in these rural towns. Missouri is a lot of very rural, lots of land, open space that could be developed. But when you come at it from an already established culture war point, they want to fight with you anyway. Like, if I'm feeling passionate about something and they're feeling passionate about something, we're never going to find that middle ground. But if we can find messaging that appeals to them, but also gets our policy through, that does help with the homelessness problem. Like, I don't think you have to sell it that way, because the people out there, like, they do vote. They really do. And they got money. They already have land. They got money. They have land, and they have entrenched ideas. And picking an outright fight with them, while sometimes necessary, maybe down the line, I feel like messaging wise, like, we could definitely sell the message of progressive ideas in a way that appeals to people. Because in Missouri, we voted for legalizing weed. We for enshrining the rights to abortion. We voted for raising the minimum wage. So there's a desire for it, but the narrative around it, with how it's been I'm 30 years old. It's been culture war my entire life. People are committed to it like sports teams. I like the Chiefs. If you like, I don't know where you guys are from. If you like the Broncos, I just don't fucking like the Broncos. I just don't. It doesn't matter how, like, oh yeah, I like that player that plays for them. No, I don't like that team. And if we come at it from a point where, hey, we're on this team that's against you, they're going to come to fight. But if we can word what we're talking about, even if our intentions are to help the homeless, if you can word it in a way that is tangible to them, I think we would have a lot of success in accomplishing our bigger term goals, especially this early on. Because, like, we could get written off as just like the old progressive movement, which they really did. They kind of got their ass whooped for like the last 10 years. I wish Bernie would have won in 2016. I voted for him. I did what had to be done at that time. Voted for Obama before that. But a lot of the stuff is just so entrenched now that I feel like if we wanted to sell this to people, we got to be selling it in a different way. But I'm
I
curious as
mean,
to what you think about that.
I will say I'm not really worried about how we're going to market it. This is more policy and what we should be focusing on whenever we get to it, and then we can work it on the marketing side of it. The problem is that these are the policies, and it's not just like, oh, the homeless is the way we're going to sell it, and the way we're going to focus on it is these policies and these reforms are pro worker. At the end of the day, that's what they are. They're pro worker policies. They're pro environment, for some of them. But workers need place to live. They need affordable places to stay. Redoing zoning laws will be part of it, but the focus on, and this is what Roosevelt had did originally in his time in the New York House, was reform. He was a reform Republican, and the big thing, and whenever he was police chief, was, hey, we need to change how this works. We need to change what we're currently doing. And I think a big thing is these are really easy things to accomplish versus doing big progressive pushes. And doing good reform and being smart about it and what we're reforming will help us build our brand and our trust that we know what we're doing. Hey, we reformed this, and look, the cost of living has gone down in these areas and they continue to see economic growth because of that. Hey, it is easy to build a plant or an office or a economy here in this city or this town because these people have availability to get into work. Whenever I helped stood up a warehouse in Olympia, Washington, the biggest thing that I did to get more candidates in was push the city to build a bus stop outside of my warehouse. There are plenty of things and good works to do for positions that are being uncontested now, that if we have a coordinated effort, we can get in there and show that we can do real change, real sustainable change, and gain the trust so that whenever we do want to go to more high level state stuff and higher level federal positions and say, hey, I want to push universal healthcare. To engage in that culture war that's going to be around that, we can come armed and say, hey, out there in Missouri, we had 4 towns with bull moose progressives there, and those cities have been doing better than ever. We can do this. We can kill this. We can do this right. I think that's another thing that we would have over a lot of current Democrats on a lot of these cities is a lot of them are mismanaged. A lot of them, like Houston, where I live now, Whitmer has been building mainly construction around where he lives. He's been investing in the infrastructure by his neighborhood. And it's dumb. And it'd be an easy thing to focus on and saying, hey, we're going to do this right. We need to build more housing. We need to make things more walkable. We need to make this pedestrian friendly. And part of it could be like cars are going to get more expensive. I saw the auto tariff. It's just going to get worse. So I think focusing on reforming local laws and whatever way we want to message it will be our path forward and will be critical to do right, to do the big progressive changes that we deeply need to see in this country that our population isn't ready for. I think it is going to be a major miss if we start focusing and talking about big sweeping changes and pushes without showing that we can do the work first.
I think
Uh,
also a lot of what we got to focus on is we've got to stay focused on economics because, like Cash said, people are kind of entrenched in their culture war ideas at this point, and I think we can change hearts and minds if we start talking dollars and cents.
Right. End of the day, and this is why I want to get infographics out and start being part of the focus and having a structure on that and what we can do there, because then we have the receipts. We have the information saying, hey, a new metro line in the city of Austin will cost us $500,000, but will generate $8 million. You know? And the big thing, part of that, and that's why we need to get some money out, is we had the exact same thing in Texas years ago about making the big rail line between all the cities. Southwest was able to outspend public support and fundraising, I think like 2 to 1 on pushing for people to say no, they didn't want this because Southwest wanted the commuter flights. Talking sister, most places are independent for localities, and whenever you get to cities, it really depends. I honestly, it will depend on if we want to caucus under. Do we have enough support in the state to get an official party made? Example: we need like 800,000 people in California to sign a push to get a political party made there. But if we ran in New York, it is way easier to create a political party to run under.
Yeah, and that's
Can I
what I
jump in real
wondered. I
quick?
didn't know, like,
Sorry.
long term. Oh, sorry. I'll just stay in my piece and
Go
I'll
ahead.
peace out. Here we have a lot of disaffected both Dems and Republicans, and in Wyoming especially, a lot of Dems switched to Republican to have any say in the voting process because no one runs as a Democrat. So I just want to think long term, and also I have to
Yeah,
think about the situation.
that's another reason why I'm trying to get this nonprofit off the ground, is that would be part of the funding will go to how do we get push and messaging to get a local political party made if we want to. I really don't think it matters wherever we run for the most part until we get to a major state election, like a contested seat for a state senator. Versus, like, I don't know, I could probably run as whatever against my current state senator in my area and be fine because he's a nobody. But if I ran against the speaker, which is 2 counties over, then that's going to be a major race. And that's more of a messaging and a battle around that. Uh, but a little bit lastly, and then we can jump back to any part of the conversation, but I want to make sure I hit on this for the sake of time, is after we have really shown ourselves for reform on local laws and showing that we can do good change sustainably and in a good way, then we can start really having that conversations for major progressive pushes and changes. And that should be focused on state level and federal level. Progressiveness really only works for these major changes at that higher level because of the true effects is you need to really push a community versus 1 or 2 people. But localities, the name of the game is reform, which is still progressive, but reform is a little bit easier to sell to Republicans than a progressive idea.
Can I mention something real quick?
Yeah.
You mentioned the homeless problem and messaging and stuff like that. I just read an article the other day about Finland ending homelessness. I don't know if anybody else happened to see that at all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, probably. There's a few of those Nordic states that are just doing better with their money.
They're miles ahead of us. But what I thought was cool, in case anybody else didn't really read it, but it was basically they and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering, but basically I think they solved it by housing first.
Yep.
As opposed to just giving people money to get a house.
Yep.
They basically put them in housing first, and then they had counselors that would work with them if they had substance abuse issues, if they had whatever ailment that was causing their homelessness. They had counselors available for those people basically on hand,
Yeah.
whenever they needed them.
So that's housing first approach has been known for like a little over a decade, and I think longer.
Mhm.
It was really showcased. I think it's one of the states that started with M. It's not Mississippi. It was either Missouri or Minnesota. Basically, a town got a truckload of homeless people, like a bus of homeless people, and instead of saying, we're bus them around, they found a parking lot. They set up a bunch of tents and sleeping bags, food, and said, "Y'all guys are gonna stay here while we bring help to you." And hey, they all got integrated into society, and that became a big push of like, hey, what's the scalability? What's this example of something that I find really frustrating is Texas, for example, should be of the state house and senate should have a fair amount of Democrats in it. They're generally almost purple, but because of gerrymandering, all that stuff, it's very Republicans. But they threw a bone to the Democrats one year to say, hey, we're going to give you the money for the housing for the homeless so that we can do this housing first and start cleaning up the homeless around Austin. Well, what they did was say, hey, we'll give you money for the hotel. What we won't give you money for is the support and the counselors. And so it was this unmitigated disaster of a program. And then every time they try to push for more things to solve the homeless things, the Republicans like, hey, we tried it once. But
Yeah,
that's
so they
neither here or
handicap
there.
it, then they point at
And
it and
that's a
say,
lot of it.
"That's
We
why we can't
waste
do it."
a lot of states waste an incredible amount of money trying to do the right thing while being handicapped so that people can run around it and
Right.
say, hey,
Yeah.
they tried to do this,
I
it failed, and it's
can I say
dumb.
something?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know enough about zoning laws for this. I've heard that some areas that are mostly suburbanized have tried to make efforts to solve the housing crisis by making certain areas into what I think is called multifamily homes
Yep.
rather than single family homes.
Yes. So
You
if you
know anything
take,
about that?
yeah, so example, New York's a kind of a good example. Boston's a great example of this. So if you ever go into the suburbs of Boston, they are packed with homes, packed with houses. And to handle the growing populations, a lot of those homes, Rosendale is a great example. A lot of those homes were single family. If you go there now, it's one house and it could have multiple floors, a duplex, a triplex, whatever. Well, they weren't built to be that originally. They were converted based off city law, city incentives to do that. To say, hey, in this space, you're holding 6 people. Well, technically, we could probably hold 12 if we turned into a duplex per house. And that's how they solved the housing problem for there, was saying we're going to turn single family into multifamily. And in some other cities, LA, for example, instead of building one big multi or a single family neighborhood, it would be a larger set of duplexes, apartment buildings, things where multiple people can live in one um, housing structures, so per se. So it's definitely big. It's a really big thing for NIMBYs to say, hey, we don't want multifamily for different things. But it does drive down. The more people that have housing, and less we drive down the demand for housing, the lower the prices will be.
That's what I was wondering about. In particular, Los Angeles. I'm not going to try to get into the history. Just know that most of Los Angeles is, I would call it suburbanized because everything's just so spread out.
Yeah.
I was in a bit of a culture shock when I went to San Francisco one day and saw how close everything was. I felt relatively comfortable taking a bus, and even when at one point I couldn't find the bus stop, I decided to walk back to my hotel and found it relatively comfortable. And I noticed how close all the streets were, like the buildings and everything. Some of them were like really skinny. They're all touching each other. It was a really huge contrast to the way everything is set up in Los Angeles. It's a little different in downtown LA, mind you. That one's a little more closer to a proper city like San Francisco. Most
Yeah.
of Los Angeles County, though, is suburbanized, and um, that's what I'm wondering about. Like my area in Southgate is what I think is set up as mostly single family homes, and I really think that if at the very least, some of these properties were made into multifamily homes, like zones or whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
Because I honestly don't know what they're called. That would at least increase the amount of housing. Maybe the houses will still be expensive, but they'll be cheaper than the way they are now. Like there was one property down the street that was in complete shambles. It was set up to be a business. Somebody ended up buying the property, built a house on it, and I want to say this was back in the early 2010s. Believe me, this area is not good. It's
Yeah.
pretty bad here. But that house still sold for $925,000, literally almost $1 million.
Yeah. So the big thing with the multifamily is why people are against it is it drops housing value by a lot and kind of on purpose, which, investment firms who have bought houses don't like. Foreign nationals who use to put their money in the US into housing as investment don't like that. If I was owned this house, I wouldn't like my value going down on it. So people get upset, but you can always refinance. Like the individual doesn't get too impacted by it, but there's a lot of money in it, so people get real upset about it. So, uh, but those are kind of the big thing. Is I think that's a huge area where there is work to be done that is doable and achievable that we could show big moves on. It's also pretty easy to get info and building out policy and things, the like correct course of actions for those localities around reforming NB policies as something that's copy pastable versus trying to push a worker program in Texas versus in Michigan. The labor laws, the stuff around that is very different, and the economy and what run the economy is really different there. So I think those are big focuses. Um, but yeah, those are my ideas and my thoughts on where I kind of want to take this going to the next steps, so that we can
One
continue
last
to
question.
grow and be sustainable. Yeah, what's up?
Okay. To be clear, what exactly is the downside to these multifamily homes? I know it can drive down the prices, but that's kind of the point, right? To make housing more affordable. Are there
People
any
will
other
have less money in their investments.
I have a pretty good point to make about this. I swear I'm not just contrarian to be contrarian, but like the appeal of multifamily homes doesn't appeal to the regular, not just like special interest groups where I live. People want that suburban home. People want that yard. They want that house. They want their kids to grow up in the same neighborhood with the same kids. They don't want rental properties nearby because when you have a lot of rentals, you don't. I rent a lot, so I'm not as invested in the neighborhood that I'm in if I think I'm going to be leaving there in a year. And I agree that, like, yeah, you could do some multifamily homes, some duplexes. I think mixed housing, like where the bottom is restaurants, small businesses, gyms, stuff like that. Because that's where I live. I live above businesses, and it's a new style of townhome, and I think it's a more appealing way to sell multifamily homes to people in areas where we're like, hey, we're throwing up some multifamily homes, but you get this awesome new restaurant, you get this awesome new, and it's all owned by people in the neighborhood. Like my neighbors own the nail salon downstairs. They live in the same building. They go downstairs, they can do it. And then I also think like you can counter that point that comes from being like, oh, people want to raise their property values. Well, if I buy a house, I don't want my property value to increase because I don't want my property taxes to increase. So if you can sell it from a point where it's like, hey, like we're not lowering your property values because regular people aren't investors. Regular people in Kansas City aren't buying and flipping houses and wanting to grow their portfolio. They're wanting their house to still be affordable. They don't want their price of their house to shoot up $150,000, and now their property tax is $2,000-$3,000 more. And then I would also touch on the point of like homeless encampments. Putting a homeless encampment in like a parking, I have an empty Kmart across the street from me. Now, does it make sense logically and morally to be able to put the people there? Of course. But what happens when one of the bad apples that are there busts out my window? I don't have $500 to replace my window today. I'm assuming most people don't. Most people don't have time. They do. People break into cars when they're desperate. It's not. It's not there. My brother is. My brother is one of those people, so I know firsthand. But he's stealing stuff, and it's mental health issues. Yeah, it's stuff like that. But I feel like a better approach would be trying to, and I think it's similar to like Spain's system. And it's funny because it's what RFK says, but it's between his brainworm stuff, he has some good ideas occasionally, and it's replicable. But having them go out to the farms and getting separated from society for a little bit to refine themselves, to be focused, to be able to only have the help that they need around them and not have the temptations of, yeah, like I know Sammy's down the street. Like if I can just get $25 tonight, I can go get that stuff. I can. My mom, I know she has that necklace. Oh, that neighbor I saw, like that car looked a little nice. He might have something back there. I'm gonna bust it out. And then when we're associated with, hey, we worked on getting this super well-intentioned program done here nearby. Well, you as an individual, as a regular everyday working person, you got your windows smashed, you got your house broke into, and like big picture, the blame would come back onto us. Now, do I agree that something needs
I'll
to be
say
done?
this.
Yes.
The ways that the cities that have done it, that have been successful, have had them away from the major city enclosures as part of it. Olympia, when we did it, we had 3 acres of land that wasn't walkable to the city or to major neighborhoods. I think a lot of it is, and this is kind of a big problem, which is a bigger macro issue, is we are playing a game of cup, ball and cup, basically, with the homeless. We are busing them to cities or busing them to towns. Everybody's just trying to get rid of them, and which sucks from a number of standpoints, getting them back with family, getting them building a support network, from all that fun stuff. But I'm not recommending like building them near residential, so per se. One community that I used to volunteer with whenever I was a kid and a teenager was called Mobile Loaves and Fishes. Originally just took food out to the homeless until Alan Graham, the founder of it, was like, there has to be a better way. I think 50 to 100 acres, and started building tiny homes. It's outside of Austin. You can take a bus there. You can't take a bus out if you want to transport out. You need to ask the staff on site. But they learn skills. They sell, they grow crops, they do blacksmithing, they do welding, and they sell their skills and their services as a part to raise money for themselves and teach them a sustainable way, which I think that's truly the best way to solve it and to handle it. But I'm not recommending building them in city centers. But again, I don't want to get super detailed into all the processes. There are things that work and we can replicate, and whenever we go to address it and bring up the specifics, we can look at that. I think from a single family home in a community, so like example, the neighborhood next to mine, we desperately need more housing. Several of those houses, like in Boston, could be converted into duplexes. And they could keep, each person could keep a yard. My sister has that in Boston. She lives in a duplex. She owns half of the house. She has half of the yard that's fenced in. That's her yard, and it's plenty of space. I think there's ways to do it. I think there's ways around it that we can go in and address. I think there's definitely times where it won't work. I don't think Columbus, Texas can build a site that's sustainable for a homeless encampment to be built for sustainable housing for them, to get them off the streets. We probably need to move them to a place that has more resources to deal with it. But we can address that as we go through. But I think going at it from the starting point of things need to change so that we can get into this and start getting whatever value and relief to the citizens that we can. and stop focus on bringing up housing cost and how saving our money and people that have money in the economy there and housing, and focus on making our communities more livable. Because at the end of the day, that does bring more prosperous stuff to it.
Okay. Can I interject real quick?
Yes.
Nope.
We've been in this meeting for like an hour, and we've talked almost exclusively about housing. So can we maybe just shift gears here for a second?
I've kind of hit all the points I wanted to, so we can.
Okay.
I was just having the conversations, but
Sure.
again, to kind of recap, um, I would love to. We need more volunteers. We're going to work on that for April. We're going to look at getting an official leadership into it by May. Kind of want to focus on, we kind of have a good steps on where we want to go with our policies, and we can continue to build it out as we approach more official deadlines for people not wanting to run, but people understanding what our messaging is and where we're going to go with what we want to do, so that people understand who we are and what our goals are. And yeah, that's about it. Those are kind of the big things that were brought up last time, and then that's kind of where we're at to address them.
Okay. So I think all this like housing stuff, that's great. I also want to touch on something though. I think most people know and like remember the Bull Moose Party and Teddy Roosevelt for public land, right?
Yes.
That is what he's known for by far more than any other part of his platform. And with the encroachment on public land that the current administration has been doing, we are at a really good opportunity here to wake people up that the Republicans aren't on the common man's side, right? So I
Right.
think another opportunity here to build support, to build grassroots networks, and to build support in rural communities that have been Republican strongholds for a long time is to make the protection of public land, whether that be via like legal challenges, whether that be through social media campaigns, or whether that be through standing in front of a bulldozer, be a big part of our identity, right?
Agreed. Definitely agree. My question for you, and I definitely agree, I kind of want to help get to why I haven't made that a part of the focus yet,
Mhm.
is I that cost money to do any sustainable change or any
Mhm.
sustainable movement. We need better community organizing, community growth, and community
Yes.
structure. So, which I'm hoping to try to build so that we can address that from a
Mhm.
standpoint of policy. Unfortunately, we need state control to do more things around state and national land more officially. So how do we build ourselves to get there? It really sucks. I love going to my local state park and national parks. I do cleanups. I've uh, done walkthroughs. I've done volunteers to go do river cleanups. I've sat in a kayak for 8 hours and cleaned up trash from rivers. I think that should be a big push, especially as we approach into the summer, of how do we get in and volunteer to help cover these gaps that we have lost federal workers and state workers to at these national parks, and help keep them in a standpoint that is clean and sustainable for all Americans to use, and that be something that we promote and say, hey, BullMooseParty is focusing on this community organizing to go down to, Enchanted Rock, and we're going to go do a cleanup. Hey, what can we do to help? We need to build infrastructure so that we do it right. And that's kind of my bit of my focus, is how do we build that infrastructure to get there?
And can I say that it doesn't cost anything to talk, Like let's say I don't know where dad is located, but
I'm your
like
neighbor in Arkansas.
down south, okay. I'll be down in the Ozarks a lot in Table Rock, so
Hell yeah.
yeah, but like stuff like that, if you were to go up to the lake or like out in Colorado, you go to Garden of the Gods or something, and you just walk around. You don't even have to volunteer. If you're just walking around talking to people like, hey, isn't this nice? Like, wouldn't you love that for this to be around? You don't have to commit time to volunteering. You don't have to. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, national parks are free. I don't know a lot about them like that, but I assume you can usually get in for like a small donation. But the people that are there, if you just are able to spark up a conversation with them, I bet the person that has time to walk around the national park has time to vote, has time to help contribute maybe like more money or more support to it. And like at the level that this party is now, like it doesn't cost any of us anything to go talk at a town hall. It doesn't take up like work if it's in a day that I don't work and I can make it to a town hall and I can just talk to some people there. Awesome. If I'm able to, if you're really into volunteering and stuff and you're able to get out and talk to people, awesome. But just talking to people, I feel like we're in a society that doesn't value communication as much. Like nothing personal, but like even right now, like I don't know what anybody else here looks like. I see avatars, I see like your voices, I can hear you, but there's something special about that communicating to somebody and like just really being like, hey man, like isn't it really cool that like we're able to have clean enough water down here at Table Rock that we can get in it and we can ride the boat. I can go back there and kneeboard. You like kneeboarding, you like boating, you like fishing, like, wouldn't it be cool if we could keep that? And then these people are trying to do it, and it's just kind of getting into people's heads about it. Like, of course, the big infrastructure. We need the big minds, like I don't know, any of your Bull Moose Progress, and we need the big picture stuff. But like on a real grassroots level, it's out in the grass. It's at the local football game. It's at the grocery store. Just like any chance that you get to talk to somebody. Not every conversation is going to be good. I know that I'm very confrontational. I know I've said stuff that probably made people here upset already. I know that's the kind of personality I have, but at least we're talking. Because if we weren't talking, I would be stuck in my ways and I would never see your perspective. People would be stuck in their ways and never see my perspective. But I feel like a lot more people have common ground. And when you can find the time to just say hi to somebody, shoot them a smile, talk to them for a little bit, it makes that grassroots part of it the more grassroots part, if that makes any sense. I'm not some great linguist, but like I don't think it
I'll
costs
say
anything for
this.
me to talk like right now.
I've definitely, and they're my original post back in February as we kind of blew up around then, talked about like if you want to get involved and continue to build, like get out, volunteer, be in community. So I don't want that to not be important, and then conversation today to say I don't think that's important. I definitely do. My big focus right now and with this kind of big meeting is like how do we continue to build infrastructure as we grow to support that. And I think for sustainable things to take care of our lands, I get going out and having conversation and talking to people, but I want to be able to turn around and also say, hey, you know, uh, talking about the Table Rock Complex cleanup and be like, hey, Bull Moose sponsored this. Like, how do we get there? How do we get to that major win and major impact so that we can go to town halls and not just say, like, hey, you know, Cash here, you see me every week, you hear me talking every week. Hi, real quick, we just kicked ass and took care of Table Rock, and the government didn't do that shit. Hey, you need to trust us. We can take care of us. We can do this. How do we give ourselves that ammo and that ability to go in and just shut people down whenever we start running? How do we build our battering rams? How do we build our pathway into this to be able to change into this government as public servants to be a point where I can go around and say, I'm going to run against Ted Cruz. I'm going to call him a little piss baby. I'm going to tell him he doesn't do shit because he doesn't. And then I can turn around and say, hey, I brought receipts to everything I've done for this great state. And that's my big focus. And I think, hey, Cash, I would love to see some of those ideas and that conversation. So how do you get involved? But like that's the reason why we're asking for social media stuff, more content things. How do we take what people know what to do well? How do we make that easy to follow for everyone else? So, let's say my wife wants to go to a town hall without me. Hey, here's Cash's guide on how to talk at a town hall so that they're ready, so we can arm and prepare all our people for it. And that really is, end of the day, is just infrastructure. How do we continue to build that infrastructure? How do we continue to build sustainable practices so that we continue to grow? Because we're in an uphill climb against billions of dollars, billionaires and people and parties that put themselves over this country and over us and civilians.
So to that point, I don't have a lot of experience with the housing stuff or gerrymandering. The one thing I do know about is environmental stuff. And I'm also on my township's land preservation and conservation board. So talking about getting those wins under our belt so we have receipts to show people. I know it's different for different geographies and depending on whether you're in a city or a rural township or you're on the west side of the country or the east side of the country, land preservation and conservation look different. But where I'm at in Michigan, Southeast Michigan is fairly well built up. There's not a lot of land left on a large scale, but the township I'm in is one of the few rural townships. And one thing we're doing, we do have a dedicated board to land preservation and conservation. For any of you that are looking at running townships or something less than a state level, one thing you can do is try to get those kinds of organizations established as an official government entity. And then beyond that, establishing things like millages to raise money to preserve land. I know a lot of the stuff we look at, they're like these big projects, right? American Prairie Preserve and like the stuff out west where you're talking hundreds of acres. If you're in an area where it's already fairly well built up, 20, 40 acres can go a long way to providing green spaces for people to recreate and space for wildlife. So if anybody wants to look at some of those different small, like local and county scale systems, I have access to some like ordinance language that could be used as a template. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, yes, I want to learn about that. So I think you should I think you should probably we should use you as a resource for a lot of people that want to get involved in that. And
There's that. I want to get
Yeah.
some of the people that are in there, and I do have some of the list. I'm going to put up another little Google form for that and start going through as part of expanding the volunteers. But Adam, I've had conversations with him at this point a few times about what is it? How do you manage that as a commissioner? Like, we have people in here. We have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of smart people, and a lot of people, and a lot of knowledge. Is how do we create structure to share that in a good way, in an easy way? But I know we're at 9. It's been an hour, so I'm gonna call it a wrap. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna write a recap, put it out tomorrow, put up a new form for volunteers, and then pull out what we're looking to do for leadership structure, probably in about a week or 2, depending on how busy. I do child advocacy, so next week's gonna be really busy for me because I have to do a few home visits and a bunch of interviews, which is super exciting on top of my other job. So be pretty busy doing that, so I'll probably jump into a little bit later. But after that, just continue to have the conversations, posting in the Reddits, having the conversations in the Discord. I've been talking to a few of the other political group subreddits. A big thing is talking about a potential coalition between us on really pushing to get super PACs and PACs out of elections and out of politics. And there's different ways to do that. I'm a big fan of just forcing their hands and getting a congressional amendment in there because their hands are basically tied and it's more of a permanent solution and it's really hard to change after that.
Yep.
But kind of talking more about that and what that looks like. But that's going to be a number one change. If that's something, if y'all guys are looking to get involved and what change that we can do immediately now, joining those money out of politics is a really good movement right now. Please, please, please join those. Conservation, next generation workers are really big to me. But until we do that, our voices will not be heard correctly, and we gotta kick down these impossible gates to get through before we can realistically make many real progress.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Would it be easy to designate kind of like a state structure, like have state within our own little group, like people, we have like a Michigan group,
Yes.
Ohio,
Yes. Let me think about the best way to kind of implement that in a way that doesn't create immediate chaos. I think it's a
Okay.
great idea. But how do we do it where it's sustainable? I am talking to the Discord mods in Money Out of Politics because they do have that set up in a really good way where you only really see your state unless you go looking, so that the
Right.
Discord isn't discombobulated with a shit ton of stuff.
That's what I was kind of thinking, because it's like, in the military, you got your main general, then you got your lieutenants and sergeants and everybody else, and kind of your foot soldiers, and it's kind of a little bit more organized, pulling in all one direction. So just
I will say it will take
Not
time.
that organized, I promise.
I will say it will take time. Like, everyone has a lot of good ideas, and I love seeing hungry people because that means you get to feed them, which is great because that's why I love cooking. But I think it will take time. We're just a small group of people. We're doing this. We have lives. We have jobs. So let's make sure that whenever we are putting our efforts towards something, we're doing it right. We're doing it measure once, cut once, or measure twice, cut once. But yeah, we'll continue to grow. We'll make sure we're growing sustainably. But my goal is 6 months of anything slow. Realistically, another 1 month, 2 months of slow, and then seeing how fast we can run. But let's get it right the first time so that when we run, we don't. But outside of that, thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for your words, thought, and inputs. That's really what community is, and that's what we do. Yeah, if y'all guys continue the conversations, if you have any questions, call outs, concerns, talk to me, talk to one of the people that label as volunteers or mods. Hurry up and write. That's true. So yeah, thank y'all. I'm gonna kind of end it there.